Hi and welcome. Today we're going to be covering a quick introduction about the Arabian Child EYFS curriculum. So let's get started. While you're going through this video, it's really important that you have all of the documents that you've received from Arabian Child. The first document that we'll talk about is the framework. You really need to read this document carefully, as it explains how the Arabian Child EYFS curriculum is based on the UK EYFS version of the framework, which is a curriculum for children from age birth to 5. EYFS is really built on play as the back and the basic foundation for all learning. You'll notice in the framework that we discuss the early years foundation stage principles. The 4 basic principles of the EYFS curriculum is a unique child, positive relationships, enabling environments, and learning and development. A unique child means that as you, as the teacher and practitioner working within the EYFS, you understand child development. You understand what inclusive practice means. You know how to keep children safe, and you understand what it takes to maintain the health and well-being of the child. For positive relationships, you have a basic understanding how to develop the respect between children, themselves as peers, and between you and the children. You also know how to work with parents as partners, and you know and understand how to support and scaffold the children's learning. You know your responsibilities as the key person. For the enabling environments, there's a very important cycle that we have to understand for EYFS, which is observation, assessment, and planning. We'll talk about that more today. You also know how to support each child and when to provide them with individual attention. You have an understanding how to set up the learning environment, and you understand that learning is not only on paper or on the screens, but it's the wider context and it's how it relates to the child's life. And all of this comes together to create the holistic learning and development for the child. This is done through play and exploration, active learning, creativity and critical thinking, and areas of and understanding the 7 areas of learning development. We've provided this to you as a poster. We recommend that you print it out, have it within your classroom, and really it will take you several weeks and maybe even months to really understand every one of these principles. So please don't be overwhelmed. Take your time and go back to the reading the framework once and again and again. And then slowly, you'll start linking and using more of the curriculum which we've gave you. I want to highlight that when Arabian Child gives you the complete package of the EYFS curriculum, we're going to give you much more than you actually need in the beginning. I really recommend that you start slowly. In this introductory video, I'm going to be talking about the basic things that you're going to be starting with when you're first starting to use EYFS curriculum. As you get really comfortable using the things that I'm going to discuss in the introductory video today, then I recommend going back to the package that you've received from us and looking at some of the other things that are within the EYFS curriculum package. Let's get started. One of the most important skills in the EYFS curriculum is for you to understand this picture right in front of you now. It talks about assessment, planning, and observation. This is how the cycle of EYFS works. Do you see the little note that says start here? It says observation, look, listen, and note. Now, whenever you're working as a teacher, sometimes you might have the inclination to start off with planning. You might feel like you want to open up a table, Start planning on what activities you're going to do with children and how you're going to spread out certain activities during the routine of the day or according to the theme. And that's one way of doing it. But EYFS recommends to you that you start first by observing the children. You have to get to know the children first. Look at what they're playing with. Listen to them while they talk to you, while they talk to their other friends. Watch them and see, get to know their interests. This is where you start with EYFS. If you don't know the children, if you don't know what things they like, if you don't know what things they can and can't do, you really aren't prepared or as prepared to select the appropriate activities for them, right? So in the first couple of weeks when you have new children, it's normal for you to have generic, open-ended activities to give them the opportunity to come and play, maybe messy play, dramatic play, and doing some physical activities so that you can just see and get to know how children behave. Once you start observing children, then you quickly do an analysis, and we'll talk about this today. An assessment or analysis is really now gathering the information that you've collected from your observation and making a decision on what activities would be best for those children, right? So we'll talk a bit more about this cycle next. Remember that EYFS has 7 areas of learning: health and physical development, math and scientific thinking, communication and language, literacy development, social and emotional skills development, understanding the world, and art and creativity. Remember in the previous slide when we talked about the importance of observing children? Well, what exactly do you observe? This is what you observe. You observe how their health and physical development is. You observe their math and science ability. You observe their communication and language. You observe their literacy development, and so on and so forth. We have given you in the Arabian Child EYFS package a very important document. It outlines each and every one of these 7 areas of learning and exactly what to expect or what to observe for each age level. My recommendation to you to make your life easier as a teacher and as an earlier practitioner, the more you can learn those learning standards for these 7 areas by heart, the easier it will be for you to know what to observe, and the easier it will be for you to select the appropriate activities from the database of activities that we have given you. So once you learn those learning standards really well, how do you start observing children? So what's great is that we give you more than one way for you to observe children. One way is using this really great looking spider diagram, which is a bunch of these circles inside of each other. You'll notice at the left side that there's this color diagram showing the different benchmarks. It starts with benchmark A all the way to benchmark E. This means that children can have a different, it's like a different color coding. So infants is red from birth to 11 months, toddlers is orange, and older toddlers are yellow, and it goes all the way to preschools. So now a really simple way to explain how you color using this beautiful spider diagram or these circles that we use. So what you do is you start with the smallest circle that's inside. Now, if the child has achieved that particular learning standards and link it back to the big learning standards table that you've just read, then you simply color that little box in or that little rectangle in. And you work with that infant. Let's say that you're working with infants, and you work your way and look at all of the learning standards for that particular age group, and you color in the ones that he's achieved or she has achieved. Once that child transitions from infancy to toddler 1, maybe he or she stays with you or goes to another teacher. If the child goes to another teacher, you simply give this same spider diagram to the other teacher, and the other teacher can now color the outer circle by following the same learning standards, but now she does her assessment of that child in that learning standards, and if the child has achieved it, she can color it in. It's a really nice way to see whether or not a child has achieved a particular learning standard. And it's nice that you can have one of these learning standards. So you see these little circles inside of each other, which we're calling the spider diagram. You're going to have one of these documents for each child. You can write down the name of the child on the side, and then you kind of follow that child throughout his or her time at the nursery or at the preschool, and it's a great way to see where the gaps are. Remember, we give you more than one way to help you assess and evaluate the progress of learning and development of the child. Here's another way. So these we call progress reports. So it is exactly the same standards. They're all the same learning areas, but they're just presented in a different way. Some teachers will prefer to use this one. So you can now fill in for that same child, whether he's developing, meeting, or exceeding a particular standard. Now these fancy documents or progress reports can be printed out like an actual report card for that child, which parents can keep. Remember, I was telling you that we give you a lot more than you can handle at the beginning of starting to use the EYFS curriculum. Here's one of those files. So this you might want to save for stage 2. This is the language acquisition model. This is a wonderful, wonderful document that we've brought together to help you develop children's language development. Now, this document talks about what are the factors that influence language development? What are the most important and newest theories of language development out there? And how does language really develop in young children's minds? And what are the most effective strategies for language development? What does phonological awareness mean? What's L1 and L2, which is the children's first and second language? And how to use observation, assessment, and planning to help you develop children's language skills. So I recommend that once you've gotten familiar with the framework, the learning standards, and you've started observing and assessing children using the different documents that we've given you, you can then move on and then start delving and diving into this beautiful language acquisition model document. Let's talk about planning. We make it really easy for you. We give you 12 monthly themes that you can decide which month you want to use those themes. You can also be inspired by how we design those themes and then design your own theme based on the interest of the children. So these wonderful 12 themes start off by putting the name of the theme or the area, and then it explains to you within all of the 7 areas how you're going to be implementing that theme within the 7 areas. And then based on that theme, you can jump to the second document that we give you, which is the weekly planning. Now remember, if you've read the early years framework, the first document that we talked about today really well, we give you examples on how to fill out the weekly planning based on the theme. Now inside the EYFS framework document, we've taken the monthly theme of space or outer space, and then we teach you how to do the weekly planning for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. So you'll notice in the weekly planning that you have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then for each day you have the planned activity, and then you have the color code right next to it. That color code refers to the 7 areas of learning again. So you can simply select the activities and then put a check mark within the area of learning that it corresponds to. That helps you to ensure that during the whole week you're covering all of the different areas of learning, and we give you really wonderful examples on how to do this in the EYFS framework. Now for the fun part. Arabian Child makes it so easy for you. We give you so many activities for ideas on what to do with young children. So the activities are all color-coded. You'll notice the activities that have the red banner on it are for infants, the orange and yellow are for toddlers, and the blue and purple are for preschoolers. Simply pick and choose the activities based on what you've observed with children. So if you observe that some children love cars and transportation material, then find the activities that use those kind of resources so that the kids will be engaged and will be excited for that learning. If you've noticed that some children need to develop some of their social emotional skills, then pick and choose the activities that develop those areas. So these activities are to give you ideas. It's a starting point. Please don't feel that you have to implement them exactly how they're written. They're meant to just inspire you, because we want the activity and the ideas for the activities, remember, to come from who? From the children. You can do a wonderful, wonderful plan, but if it doesn't relate to the child, if the child isn't interested in it, or if it doesn't match the children's interest, then your planning won't be as effective. But if you use these activities as your inspiration, and then you watch and observe what children really need or what they're really interested in, then your planning becomes so much more powerful. Then we give you a bunch of these children-friendly documents or little booklets. The communication diaries are meant for you to fill in information to exchange with parents on a daily basis. The learning journeys are there to help you to record children's progress. Now, you'll notice that we use 0 worksheets. We don't believe in worksheets. However, we do believe in putting down and documenting children's learning. So if a child has learned something and you've noticed it through a painting that he or she has made, or maybe something that he or she was playing with their friends, and then you've got a picture of that, then you can put down that as your evidence of their learning and use that throughout their time with you in the setting. I wish you the best of luck, and thank you so much for coming to Arabian Child for your EYFS curriculum.